Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Jennifer Chassman Browne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by just telling us a little bit about who you are?
I'm Jen Chassman Browne. I am a person with a disability. I have arthritis. I've had it since I was a kid, so it's been a journey, I guess. It's been a process of living with this illness and having it progress a little bit. But I am also an educator. I spent 25 years as an English teacher and a school leader doing like assistant principal work, curriculum director work, always kind of on the student side and on the academic side, working with teachers and kids to try to make schools places where everybody feels good about their learning and their success and their work. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to start my own consulting company, New Ground Educational Consulting. And I started really looking at like, well, working with teachers and students on curriculum and instruction, and then pivoted a little bit into some DEI work. And then the most recent pivot about 3 years ago was really focusing on disability advocacy and education. And that's what I've been doing since, working with schools, working with nonprofits, working with medical centers, doing keynote speeches for everything from brand and marketing institutions, corporations to like the ADA centers. Really just trying to talk about inclusion and even sort of pushing things to where I think things need to be, which is talking instead of about inclusion, talking about and focusing on belonging. So that's been my path. Actually studied philosophy and medical ethics when I was in school and thought I was going to be in a hospital setting doing some like medical ethics work. But when I got in the classroom, I really loved that, and so that was a switch for me, actually in grad school.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that. What is your definition of inclusion?
I think inclusion is really about creating spaces and experiences for everyone where people, regardless of like their disability, if they have one, their identity, their needs, feels welcome and able to participate.
That's a great definition. Um, so in your experience, is that an easy thing for people to create, or what are some of the barriers that keep that
Yeah,
from
I think it's a
happening?
hard thing for people to create because I think it's really about knowing other people, having a sense of experiences of people who are different than you are. And I don't think we have that innately, right? When I like if I were to go create an inclusive space, that inclusive space would be based on my understanding of what I need. Like, so what do I need in this space to feel like I'm welcomed and feel like I'm included and feel like I have access? Um, the more I live, certainly the more that I do this work, the more I'm like, oh, right? I haven't thought about this for a person who has environmental allergies, or I haven't, I have a mobility disability, but that doesn't mean that I understand what other people able-bodied and disabled need, right? So it's I don't think it's an easy thing to create at all. I think it's about like intentionally asking, first of all, but then listening and watching and seeing what um like I can tell what a person needs to some degree by watching them, seeing them come into a space, seeing what they're looking for, where they go. But I also think it's really about intentionally asking, like how, and I don't think that's about only people with disabilities. I think that's about asking everyone, right? Somebody can have needs that are just based on them being an individual human being. And if I say, is there anything that I can do to help you feel included and welcome? That could be asked of any human being, and we all have different answers to it, whatever our identity is. So I think it's I think it's hard to do, and I think we have to have conversations about it. We have to listen to each other and ask each other in polite and, compassionate, thoughtful ways. Um, but I also don't think it's just about disabilities, right? So question needs to be asked of everyone.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, my daughter, she uses a wheelchair to get around. So if I think about inclusion or the space being accessible, that's where my brain goes right away. But yeah, there are other, other things. I mean, there's like food allergies, or like you said, the environmental things like scents and different things. For me, I don't have like something related to that. It's just, I mean, if I'm in a space where everybody's wearing a different kind of perfume or lotion, like Bath and Body Works, that's just not. I just
Right.
don't like all of it. But for some people, it's more, it has more impact on them than just that part. So yeah, it's definitely
Right.
like you said, you have to talk to people and find out, what can we do here to make this more inclusive or make you feel like you belong more. So yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I need a chair that's not just one of those low, like, folding chairs, right? So when I walk into a space, if that's the only option, I don't feel included, right? I walk into rooms and my heart sort of falls a little bit where I think, "Okay, where am I gonna go?" Because if I get into one of those chairs, I struggle to get out. I don't like to be dependent on other people. I like to be independent. So I've stood at the back of the room for an hour. I've left where I just felt like I couldn't participate. Um, and that's like my need is sort of small and specific, but even when people have made attempts to include me, like the chair that I need has been put by itself against the wall. And I'm like, there's rows of chairs. Why would you not just put my chair at the end of one of the rows? Right? Why am I what's happening? I don't feel included even if the chair is provided for me. That's not inclusion. So I push a lot on organizations to right. So if you're creating spaces for wheelchair users, why is it always in the last row on the outside edge? Why aren't you removing some of the chairs in a row that's an interior aisle that you make wide enough for people to get through, and then is like the second row or the first row of the space? Like allow somebody to have options and choice and think about what does it feel like to come in and know that that's the only spot that you're able to access, right? I think about that even with, building public spaces. Why are you building the accessible space only as the back row? Right? And that's so I see, like, the back row on the outside edge. I'm not a wheelchair user, so I might not be needing that, but someone who is, like, give them the same kinds of options that anybody else who walks into the room has. And you mentioned, like, food allergies. If you're having an event that has food, engage somebody who's got food allergies and ask them what are things that might be um, accessible and edible for everybody who comes. How can I make this as broadly inclusive as possible? Right. I had one friend that I talked to who said potlucks are her nightmare. Right. She has food allergies. And so, like, she can bring the thing that she can eat, but where's the fun in that?
Right. And yeah, in that situation too, yeah, I mean, people don't have their recipes or what's in it next to it. So you don't have no idea what's even in there or that
Right.
stuff either. So yeah.
But she has some friends who have started to when they have a potluck and they're notifying the people that are invited, they mention that there's someone or there are people coming who have food allergies, and these are the things that need to be avoided. So if you could make, think about this as you choose what you're going to make and bring so that there's more than the option that she made herself for her. Right.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, my Christmas party at work this year, they had cupcakes for dessert, and somebody that works at the company actually does some baking on the side. So she had some um gluten-free ones, I believe, and she actually did bring like this is everything that's in them, or like what, she tried to use dyes or whatever like that are more, I don't
Yeah.
know, health like more plant-based or something like that. So she was trying to do that, and she actually, like I said, she had like the recipe or at least the ingredients where she said that she knew what they were. So if you had questions, you could ask, which I thought was a pretty cool to be able to do that for people. So yeah, that was
Yeah,
kind of
that's
nice
awesome.
to
And
see.
I think it's just like ask, right? If you ask people what they need, if you're the person, if I'm making something for the potluck, it's probably not more difficult for me to be thoughtful about making something that everybody can eat,
Right.
right? I can find
Yeah.
that recipe and I can make it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you say about where the handicap or where spots are for wheelchairs. We were just at a conference a couple weekends ago, and it was in a large church. And yeah, the spot there was one person there I saw in a wheelchair, and the spot was in the back. He eventually ended up going and sitting like way up front, I think, in the aisle. But it's just, yeah, why? Yeah, why is it way in the back? You could just as easily put a spot halfway up or in the front. And I actually thought about it because I'm like me. I don't use a wheelchair. I can sit anywhere I want in this place. But he being in the wheelchair, there's that one spot. So it's
Right.
yeah.
And then if
But
you're
then
not thoughtful about like extending the aisles, widening the aisles if you're able to, because then if the wheelchair user does want to be up front, then they're sort of in a path of travel, right? But you can, if you're putting out chairs, you can remove a couple chairs and put a space. Um, and then that person could sit with someone else closer up. It's just small things, but they matter because when a person comes into a room, you know, if they have specific needs for feeling included, they know immediately I was thought of or I was not thought of. And it's so much nicer to be thought of. It really is. And to
yeah.
recognize that other people were too, right? Like when you go into a room and you're like, oh, somebody was really intentional about creating inclusive spaces here.
Yeah, for sure. And there have been some times we've gone in a situation like that, and we've driven up to like the front and just parked my daughter in the aisle. And it's like, you guys don't have a spot for her to sit, so we're just going to park here. It's kind of on you that we're basically blocking the aisle because there isn't a spot. But yeah, it definitely. I know. Yeah, it's interesting, and I know in like grade school, my daughter was be like we go to like a Christmas concert or whatever, and they have bleachers and the risers in the gym, and her class would be on the one side, she'd be off way on the other side. It's like, why would you not put her class near her or put her near the class? Like,
Right.
but little things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Like what
interesting.
gets you fired up that you see happening around her?
What gets me fired up?
Yeah.
Um, Early on, it was just so I didn't know anything about the education stuff, so we just went along with what the school said, which meant
Right.
sending her to a segregated room across town. And then found out by visiting that kids in that class were already folding towels and doing that stuff in like kindergarten, first grade. And I was like, hold
My
on a second,
goodness.
why is she not in math or reading? Why are we already writing them off? So that kind of fired me up. But it's just people, if we go for walks where they park in their driveway, but they're covering the sidewalk. So then you have to like go around
Mhm.
onto the street to get
Yep.
around them. That kind of gets me fired up. Buildings now that aren't accessible fire me up because, I don't even know at this point, over 30 years past ADA, and there's still buildings that aren't accessible. Some of them are old and I understand some of it, but it's like we've had enough time to figure this out. Even if it's expensive, you could have saved money every year at this point to pay it, have it paid off. So it's just those things where it's just like, I guess we can't go in there or you don't want our business. Those things kind of fire me up. Or I live in Minnesota, so in the wintertime, it doesn't really fire me up that much, but just where people don't shovel their sidewalks. Power wheelchairs don't work in snow. So it's just, I guess,
Right.
if they don't shovel like on the
You can't
curb
go
or
there.
just
She can't
push,
go
you can't
there.
get around anywhere. So yeah, those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the ADA is so important, but one of the keynotes that I gave recently, I talked about beginning with belonging rather than just talking about, access. Mm. But I also think the problem with the ADA is it puts the onus on the person who is excluded to pursue, like, to pursue a claim, right? So who has the capacity to be like, I'm going to fight this building or this company because, or my city government that hasn't cared about creating access for me into public buildings. Um, and it's a real like battle. I've made complaints before about businesses that refuse to serve me because I have a service dog. And I was told by my um, government offices that, one person being turned away is not going to be enough for us to pursue a claim, right? So the ability to actually The ADA provides regulations, but the ability to actually ensure that those regulations are followed is really difficult.
Yeah, I've heard from other people stuff similar to that. Like if there's laws, if you speed, the police can pull you over and give you a ticket. Like with the ADA stuff, yeah, the onus is on the person to file the complaint. It's not like something that somebody can go around and enforce. So yeah, and if, in this space, all the other things that we have to spend our time on, like my daughter has, different services. So you're already spending all your time filling out that paperwork and doing all the stuff. So it's like, how do you have more time to do other things, or this is another thing I have to spend time on? So then you got to pick your battles or priorities. The service dog thing is interesting because they're not, yeah, they're supposed to allow you in. They're not supposed to ask questions, but they don't always follow what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I had an experience at a restaurant um, where the woman told me that she doesn't want dogs in and she doesn't care. Right? I said, "This is against the law. You have to let me in and serve me. I don't care. I don't like dogs. I don't want dogs in here." And then moved on to the next person in line. Um, yeah, I ended up like I did file the claim. Nothing happened as a result of it. But then I went to a restaurant like across the street and I said something to one of the servers. And before I knew it, all of the servers knew. And some of them had come over and said, "That's not right." So I was like, "Okay, well, I started this little bit of a buzz." People are talking about the fact that that restaurant wouldn't serve me, so I don't know. I also did, put a review, a Yelp review. That was my way of responding to that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, like you said, share the story, talk about it, put those reviews out there so other people can at least know ahead of time if they look at them. Like if I have a dog, they're not
they
going to
might
want me
not
to come in there.
feed
So
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
avoid other people having the same thing.
yeah.
What should listeners know about living with a disability?
I think listeners should know that while it's impactful and a part of my identity, it's not the whole of who I am, right? One of the things that was really hardest for me was my disability was not really visible for much of my life. I was sort of a typical kid, or I could kind of hide it. Um, so my arthritis made me a little bit stiffer than normal, or that a typical person would be. I would wear braces at night, and I would get be taking different medicines and um like the only thing I remember doing when I was in grade school was sometimes pretending like I was looking for something in my backpack as I stood up because I might need to stretch my legs a little bit more, get ready to walk, and I was a little bit stiff, but it was really not visible. One of the most impactful things for me and really difficult things for me when it became visible was suddenly that's what people saw when they saw me. And that was, reflected back to me, and, um and that was not how I saw myself. So it was really difficult because suddenly, the person that I'd been and I was, a school leader, and I would stand in front of hundreds of parents and families, and, I would give presentations about our programs and go to conferences, and that was how people would engage with me, like, "Oh, you're a school leader, you've got this expertise, I wanna talk to you about this." And it was, almost overnight when my disability became visible, it was suddenly the only thing that people, "Oh, are you okay? Do you need help?" And I was like, "I am this, independent, successful person. Stop asking me 5 times a day when I go out, if I'm okay and if I need help. If I need help, I'll ask." So I think, for me, that was harder than having limitations, physical limitations, was suddenly, as a person with a disability, that's what people notice about me, and that's what they wanna talk to me about, and I really just wanna be seen as a person. It's one element of my identity. It's an important element of my identity. It's driven a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the communities that I'm a part of, um, but, it's one part of who I am, and I feel like people don't get past that. with people with disabilities, right? Like, talk to that person the same way that you would any other person that you pass on the street. If you feel like you want to offer help, don't say, "Do you need help?" Say, "Do you want some help?" And then respect the person's answer if they say no. Because I've said no so many times, and people start going, "Well, are you sure?" Right? Like, if I look like I'm struggling, that's okay. That might be how I do the thing I do. But I still want to do it independently. So if you need to ask, ask kindly and respect the answer. But then also, like, wish me a good day or make a comment about my shirt or, you know, chit chat with me about the weather. Like, treat me the same way that you would any other person that you're interacting.
That is interesting. Why do you think that is, or why do you think? Yeah, because your life. I mean, you had your arthritis before that, right? So you had that
Yep.
before. It just became obvious. So why do you think when it became obvious, it like changed that much? Is there something in society where that's just how we view people, or I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a, I think it's a, like a perspective that is encouraged by society to like see people with disabilities as people who need help. And sometimes people do, but like non-disabled people also need help sometimes too, right? So I had a conversation with I was talking to this young man who was in a nursing program, and I was at a event where I was talking about my disability and answering questions. And so I finished speaking, and he said, "Well, how would you want me to offer help to you or to any person with a disability?" And I kind of chuckled and I said, "The same way that you would anybody. Right? How would you offer help to an able bodied person?" And he was like, "Oh, I would just like, hey, are you good there? Right? You want any help with that?" And I was like, same way, like low key. It's not the only thing you notice about me. It's just an offer. And then when I say no, you say, "Okay, good. Have a good day. Like, take care." And he, like, I think when I said the same way you would an able bodied person, he was like, "Oh, okay. That makes sense. Why wouldn't I have thought of that?" Um, right. So, but I think it's this, I think I want to say it's even like historical, like the images that we have of people with disabilities are pity parties, right? The images we have of people with disabilities are people who struggle and need help and aren't able to live independently, and whether that's changed in terms of the way that we present images of people with disabilities or not, I feel like that perception is still embedded, and that's the thing where people like non-disabled people come from a place of that being the way that you view the sort of sad disabled person, and that they're always needing help, and so you're always offering help. Um, yeah, I think it comes from that. The other day I said systemic ableism, and I said it out loud, and I was like thinking of, comparing it to systemic racism, but I was like, we live with systemic ableism. And the people I was talking to were like, "I've never heard that phrase before." And I was like, it just popped into my head, but that's what it is we have these systems in place, right? We needed a series of laws just to say include us, build spaces that allow us to access them, and we still fight with that. And I think the other thing that we don't talk about a lot is that the creation of a mindset, right? Even I, a person with a disability and a child with a disability, like, didn't want to be associated with those other kids whose whose disabilities were visible, right? Even I had that embedded, like, sense of that person is less than or needy in some way. So breaking out of that is really challenging.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, and as you were talking, I was also thinking like for personally, like if I see somebody who's maybe struggling, I was wondering, like trying to think, if they don't appear like they have a disability, I mean, am I less likely to ask if they need help? Whereas if they're in a wheelchair or something that's super visible, will I, offer to help them sooner? I guess I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's something to, like,
Yeah.
be attentive of for yourself, right? Um, Yeah, and I think that you can see a person with a disability who's not even struggling, and people feel the need if they're just, like, going by you. "Are you okay? Do you need any help?" Which you wouldn't do with a non-disabled person, like, "Oh my gosh, you're walking by me. Do you need some help?" So thinking for yourself of, like, am I asking because that person has a visible disability, or am I asking because it appears to me like they're struggling with something? But I also, I said before that struggle can just be the way they do it, right? I can go up and down stairs, I do it awkwardly, but I do it and I don't want any help with it, right? So when you see me doing it, it's like, no, this is just the way I do it.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, I don't know if this has happened to you, but my daughter's in a wheelchair. So if we go to like the doctor, sometimes they ask you your name and birthday. Well, sometimes they'll look straight at me or her mom and be like, what's her name and birthday? And it's like, why are you asking us? At least ask her first. If she can't answer, then we'll help you. But why just because she's in a wheelchair, do you assume she can't share her name and birthday? And I've also had more than one person tell me that friend of mine who has cerebral palsy, if he goes out to restaurants, it's not uncommon for him for the waiter to ask like who he's with, like what he wants to eat. And I mean he can talk, he just has cerebral palsy, so you know, you can tell when he walks differently than you or than I do. But people will ask people he's with, like, what does he want to eat? And he's like, I can talk. I don't like why are they asking other people what I want to eat? So
Yeah, it's happened to me a few times. People will talk to my husband. Um, and I remember being like the restaurants have like hotels rather have like those restaurants that they've got, continental breakfast available. And we went into one of these restaurant areas in a hotel, and I think we were both carrying, like, our juice to the table, and then I put my juice down, and he said, "I'll get your plate for you," and I was like, "Okay, great." And so I sat down, and this couple across the way called out to him and said, like "While you're getting her breakfast, like, if she needs anything, we can help her." And I was like, "You literally just heard me and saw me talking to him. Like, why would you think I need somebody else to speak up if I need something?" Right? So, like, I don't I don't even understand what the process was in their minds of thinking that I couldn't ask him for something if I needed something, right? I was ambulatory, am ambulatory. I had something in my hand. I had a conversation with him. He said he would get my food. Like, we've both done that for each other. I brought him plates before. It wasn't a disability thing. It was just like a spouse doing a nice thing for another spouse. But it was just this weird, like, they didn't talk to me. They called out to him, making this assumption that somehow I couldn't take care of myself while I was sitting there waiting for him or hear them or see them. And so, like, I turned to them and I said, like, I can hear you. I can see you. I can speak for myself. Like, I don't need you to step in if I need something. And you could, if you wanted to offer help, offer it to me, not to him. I don't even understand why. Like, why are you not speaking to me?
right.
Um,
Yeah.
right. And I have a friend who also has cerebral palsy who gets a lot of the people speaking to other people around him, and they often assume that his wife is his caregiver, right? And so they'll be like, "Oh, we'll have your caregiver bring that for you," and he's like, first of all, it's my wife, not my caregiver, and secondly, like, he's ambulatory, right? So even though he walks awkwardly, what some people would think of as awkwardly, like, he can get stuff for himself. He can certainly order his own food and eat his own food, right? Like, just so many assumptions that are around that I think are so hard to get people to, um, like, not make, right? It's changing a worldview. And I'll be honest, I am not always the nicest person about it. Right? Like, in my head, I want to help people understand why what they said or did was not okay. But when it happens in that moment, sometimes my reaction is just visceral and I just push back with frustration, right? Instead of kindness. Not that kindness is always required of me, but sometimes I'm just like, I can hear you, I can see you, and I want you to go away, right? Or people wanting to pray for me. Like, I don't need you to pray for me. I actually have said to someone, if you want to pray for me, that's great. You don't need to know my name and you don't need to know, quote, what is wrong with me. I was like, if you just describe me, God will find me,
Yeah, it's funny.
right? Stop
That's a good
asking me
that's a good point though.
questions. Yeah.
I mean, I know there's been more than once where I'll be out with my daughter and people are like, "Oh, it's so nice that you bring her to the fair or the mall." I'm like, "She's my daughter. I bring my son to the mall and fair, and you don't say good job for bringing your son." Like, why are you saying good job for bringing her? Like, she's not supposed to leave the house? Like, I don't
Right. Because they
understand.
expect that she's home all the time, right?
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely there's some work we need to do, I guess.
Yeah. People will say to me in groups of friends that I have who have disabilities, visible disabilities, like, "Oh, it's so great to see you guys out and about." I'm like, "Uh-huh." We started saying, "You too. So great to see
You
you
too.
out and about too."
It's a
Like
good
ways to
comeback
get people to like think about what they just said without being too confrontational.
for sure. What is one tip you can share to help the listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
I mean, I think that's part of what we've been discussing, which is like have an awareness of how you see and interact with people with disabilities, right? Think to yourself about like, am I engaging with this person differently than I would a non-disabled person? Um, I also think if you're responsible for creating events or creating spaces, go through a process of thinking about if I were this person, if I were this person, if I, had this particular need or this disability, what would it be like for me to be in this space? And then I guess the last piece I would say is in ways that are respectful, build relationships with people with disabilities, and then ask them how you can be inclusive.
Those are great. Thank you so much.
Thank
If
you.
there's one thing you hope listeners take away from your story, what would it be?
Um, to see, I'm not going to say beyond the disability. I'm going to say to see um, the wholeness of the person, including the disability, but the other aspects of their identity as well. Right. So if you see a person with a disability, recognize that that's one element of their identity, of who they are, and make an effort to engage with them and see them for the fullness of their humanity and their personhood.
Yeah, that's great. This popped into my head. How do you think we can start, like, just, how do we, is there things we can do, you think, to, like, just see the whole person? I'm just trying to think, because my brain, like, if you see someone with a different skin color, my brain notices that. I mean, I don't know is there, like, certain
Pause,
practices that
bef-
people do or we
pause
could do
before
to,
you interact with them. Then,
yeah,
like, just take a moment, right? So if you see
right.
a person with a different skin color, there might be things that pop into your head. So, like, pause for a second and then notice something else about them. What are they doing? How are they engaged with other people? What shirt are they wearing? Right? What activity are they involved in? Do you notice that they have like a really cool smile or that they're supporting someone else or the same thing. Like, okay, so you see a person who's a wheelchair user and you're like, oh, that's a wheelchair user. And then you see them interacting with their dad, like you, and you're like, oh, what a cool relationship between, dad and daughter. Or, they're talking about going to the beach. Like, hey, the beach is an awesome place to go this time of year. Like, find some other thing that you can notice about them the way that you would notice it about a non-disabled person and engage based on that, right? I am, I steel myself against the world when I go out, right? Like, I put on a little bit of armor and prepare myself for the stupid comments, and the actions that feel like they're judgments of me needing help. When somebody does something that's not that, it's so refreshing, right? I can unclench my fists, I can relax a little bit, I can, like, breathe differently. When somebody just goes like, "Hey, I love your shirt," right? Or somebody says like, um, "Yeah, I heard you guys just talking about this, and I just went and did that last week." I'm like, somebody's interacting with me in a way that is not just about my disability or my perceived need. It allows me to breathe, right? It allows me to relax. It's so refreshing. So, like, be that person. Approach the person if you're gonna engage with a person with a disability, approach them with, like, a sense of recognizing other elements of their identity.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to think about it. Thanks for reframing that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where's the best place for everybody to connect with you?
Um, you can literally Google Jennifer Chassman or Jennifer Chassman Browne, and I am all over the place right now. Just the um, my own websites. I have a consulting company called New Ground Educational Consulting. It's newground.us. I'm on LinkedIn, Jennifer Chassman Browne, Facebook, Jennifer Chassman. But I also, like I said, I've done so many different speaking gigs and um, been on as a keynote speaker and radio shows and columns for newspapers that if you literally just Google me, it's not hard to figure out how you can reach me.
Awesome. Ready for the last question?
Yep,
You like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
not a fan.
Ah,
Sorry.
that's fine.
I hadn't
I
eaten it
live
very
near.
much. Maybe if I had it more, it would be okay. I know I've
Maybe.
had friends who flavor it and cook it, and they really like it, so
Yeah, I live near Austin, Minnesota, where they make spam and where the spam museum's located. So I've just been asking everybody that question just to see reactions. It's
what do you
usually pretty.
think are the is it, like, more no's than yeses
Let me
split?
just check on the one I released yesterday. As of yesterday, we're at 85 yeses and 110 nos. So it's slightly
That's
more nos
that's
than yeses,
pretty
but it's pretty
that's not
close.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
good, a few more yeses and you'd have 50-50.
But it kind of depends on like who I interview and what order a lot because like there'll be stretches where it's like a bunch of no's in a row, a bunch of yeses. So
Yeah.
it's a lot based on who I'm interviewing. But yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, it's not.
What's your answer?
Yeah, we eat it. I mean, we eat it maybe twice a year. We'll have it like where you slice it, fry it up, and have it with pancakes or something. I mean, so
Yeah,
not a lot. Not like Hawaii a lot. They eat a lot in Hawaii. So,
right, yeah.
but yeah. So I just kind of like asking that question just to see what it is.
It's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. I really, enjoyed our conversation and appreciate the opportunity to discuss this, something that's always on my mind and is a critical part of my life, so thank you.
To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.